your eyes for a moment. Picture a world with no cities, no houses, no machines, only wide valleys, dark forests, and endless sky. In that world walked people who looked a little like us, but lived in ways most of us cannot imagine. They had no gyms, no weights, no sports, and yet their bodies were harder, their muscles thicker, their bones stronger than almost any of ours today. They did not build their strength by choice. They built it because every single day demanded it. Imagine carrying firewood for miles, chasing an animal across hot plains until it collapsed, or pulling a heavy deer over rocks with your bare hands. Imagine shaping stone into tools, hour after hour, until your arms burned. Even children joined in, learning by watching, lifting, climbing, falling, and trying again. By the time they reached their teenage years, they were stronger than most modern adults ever become. But this strength wasn't only in muscle. It was in lungs that could run for hours, in hands that never stopped working, in minds that refused to quit, and in hearts that still found room for love, laughter, and care, even in a harsh world. Tonight, we step into their footsteps. We will uncover what it truly meant to be strong when strength was the only way to survive. Chapter 1. Born into Hardship. The story of human strength does not begin with the swing of a spear or the roar of a hunt. It begins with something far more fragile. It begins with birth. Imagine the first cries of a newborn echoing in a cave, or beneath a simple shelter of branches and hide. There are no doctors, no clean blankets, no medicines, only firelight, shadows on stone, and the steady hands of women who have seen birth many times before. The air smells of smoke and damp earth. Outside, the wind howls through trees or snow. Inside, the whole group waits, silent, holding its breath for the sound of new life. To be born in that world was already a test of strength. Many did not survive it. Every child that entered the world carried both the hope of the group and the heavy risk of loss. The mothers who gave birth were themselves walking miracles. Imagine carrying a child for 9 long months while still walking miles every day, still gathering roots and fruits, still foraging for firewood, still drinking water that was not always clean. Imagine a mother laboring not on a hospital bed, but on cold ground, with nothing but the strength of her own body and the support of her kin. That strength is not easy for us to picture now. We have walls to protect us from wind, clean water that flows at the turn of a tap, food that waits in silent rows on shelves. But in that ancient world, survival began at the very first breath. If the air was too cold, if the fire went out, if predators lurked too close, if illness spread through the camp, life could be stolen before it even had a chance to begin. And yet, again and again, against impossible odds, children were born and lived. Their mothers bore them with a quiet power that is difficult to honor in words. These women did not stop moving when pregnant. They climbed slopes, bent low to dig roots, carried water, and kept fires alive, all while carrying another life inside of them. Their hips and legs were strong not from training, but from endless necessity. Their backs bent under loads of food and firewood, but still they endured. This was strength not as choice, but as nature. Picture a scene. A woman, belly heavy, walking with her group across a plain. The sun burns overhead. Sweat drips into her eyes. Flies circle in the heat. In her hands, she carries a bundle of wood. Behind her walks a child of 5 or 6, carrying a smaller load, already learning the rhythm of survival. That unborn child hears everything: the pounding footsteps, the rhythm of breath, the roar of wind. Before they even arrive in the world, their training in endurance has already begun. When birth came, it was not always gentle. The cries of pain, the pushing, the blood, all of it happened in open air or shallow shelter, yet women were rarely alone. Grandmothers, aunts, sisters, friends, they gathered to help, to guide, to comfort. Birth was never private. It was part of the fabric of community, and the community itself relied on every child, every tiny life. To lose one was not only sorrow, it was danger for the group's future. To keep one alive was victory. And so, every newborn that survived was already marked as strong. Their first act in life was to endure, to breathe in air filled with smoke and dust, to drink from a mother whose body was tired but unbroken, to cry loudly enough that the camp knew. Here was another fighter, another spark to add to the fire of survival. But the strength was not only in the infants, it was in the parents, the group, the bond of all who shared in the raising. Fathers carried their babies on long marches, wrapped tight in furs against the chest. Older children entertained and soothed the little ones, playing simple games in the dirt while the adults worked. Strength was not just muscle, it was patience, tenderness, and the willingness to protect something utterly helpless. Think of the nights, the cold settling in, wolves howling beyond the firelight, the child sleeping against a parent's chest, heartbeats sinking, every rustle in the dark a reminder that danger never slept. A father with tired arms and aching legs still held the baby close, refusing to let go. A mother, sore and exhausted, still rocked her child and hummed softly, even when she had no strength left for herself. These small acts were the beginning of human strength, the choice to protect another at any cost. We often think of strength as a contest of power, as something loud and obvious. But in truth, the strongest people of prehistory were often those who carried others when they could barely carry themselves. The mothers who gave birth without medicine, the fathers who walked miles with children tied to their backs, the elders who passed down knowledge so that every new life had a chance. For a child to reach even a single year of age was already proof of resilience. Infants slept in the open air, exposed to smoke, dirt, cold, insects. They teethed on bones and roots, crawled across stone floors, stumbled through grass taller than their heads. There were no soft cradles, no safe playgrounds. Every fall hurt, every scratch risked infection, every slip could be deadly. And yet, those who survived grew tough from the very start. Imagine a toddler learning to walk on uneven ground, not polished floors, but soil, rocks, roots. Their tiny hands grabbing at branches for balance, their knees bruised, their bare feet cut. But slowly, step by step, they learned. They were not protected from struggle. They were shaped by it. By the time a child reached 3 or 4, they were already helping with work, carrying sticks, fetching water, imitating tool making. By 7 or 8, they joined hunts, chased small animals, gathered fruits and plants. They were expected to be useful, and they became so. Childhood was not a time of softness. It was the furnace in which strength was forged, and the mothers who bore them, their strength did not end at birth, carrying children while walking for hours, nursing them while working, holding them close during migrations. To us, it might sound like impossible labor. To them, it was simply life. They did not call it strong, they called it necessary, and that necessity made humans into something astonishing. Our ancestors did not just survive because of brute muscle. They survived because mothers endured, because fathers protected, because children learned quickly, because groups shared burdens. Think of this. Without that strength, you and I would not exist. Somewhere in your own bloodline was a mother who gave birth in a cave or beneath trees, who kept her child alive in storms and hunger, who held on when everything seemed lost. Her strength is the reason you are alive to hear this story now. Strength was not rare in those days. It was everywhere. In every birth, every cry, every pair of small hands learning to work. And so the story of caveman strength does not begin with warriors. It begins with the smallest among them, the newborns who endured their first breath, and the mothers who bore them against all odds. Because if you survived those first fragile years, if you grew through smoke and hunger, if you walked while still small, carrying loads far too heavy for your age, then the real training of life was only just beginning. Chapter 2: Childhood of Stone and Fire. If birth was the first test of strength, then childhood was the long road that shaped it. To grow up in the Stone Age was not a time of safety and play, as we imagine today. It was a training ground, a daily schooling in endurance, in patience, in labor. And the teachers were not in classrooms. They were the land, the animals, the fire, and the sharp edge of stone. Picture a child, no older than 5, sitting near the campfire at dusk, their eyes wide, watching sparks rise into the dark. Around them, adults chip away at flint, shaping it into sharp points. The sound of stone striking stone echoes in the night. Chips fly, some small enough to stick in skin. The child watches carefully, then picks up a pebble and tries the same motion. The stone shatters clumsily. Tiny fingers ache. But nobody scolds. In this world, mistakes are lessons. Cuts and bruises are part of learning. Every day for a child was a lesson in strength. They climbed over logs, up hills, onto rocks, barefoot, their feet toughened by dirt and stone. They carried sticks almost as tall as themselves. They fetched water in small containers, spilling much of it along the way, but trying again until the rhythm of balance was learned. Childhood was not free from work. It was preparation. Imagine the way their hands changed. At first soft, they grew calloused, rough, hardened from touching stone, from pulling rope made of twisted fibers, from scraping hides. By 10 years old, those hands were already more capable than many modern adults' hands today. Every day was practice. Every task was repetition, and repetition is the forge of strength. But it wasn't only muscle. Children learned to see, to read tracks in dirt, to notice the silence of birds when danger approached, to tell safe berries from poisonous ones. This kind of attention was its own kind of strength. A sharp eye could save a life just as much as a strong arm. Think of their play. Children did not have toys made of plastic or wood. Their games were imitations of adult life. One child would pretend to be the hunter, chasing another who pretended to be the deer. They practiced throwing sticks as if they were spears. They climbed trees to spy on animals, to test their balance, to push their courage. Play was not escape from survival. It was rehearsal for it. When they fell, they cried, but they also learned. The scrape of a knee, the sting of nettles, the shock of cold water. These were teachers. By the time they reached their teenage years, pain was no stranger. It was woven into them like an old friend. Now imagine a child's first real task in tool making. Their mother or father places a piece of flint in their lap, shows them how to strike it at just the right angle, not too hard, or the stone would shatter uselessly, not too soft, or it would not break at all. The child raises a hand, strikes, and feels the jolt through their arm. The flake falls, thin and sharp, a small victory. The cut edge can scrape a hide, slice meat, carve wood. The child smiles, not because it is fun, but because it works. They have just learned to bend the world a little more in their favor. But this lesson came at a cost. Flint knapping is exhausting. Even trained archaeologists today who attempt it find their arms burning after minutes. For ancient children, this was daily. Shoulders ached, wrists swelled, fingers split. But there was no giving up. The tool was needed. The task had to be finished. This persistence was its own weightlifting. Their bodies carried it, and over time, their muscles answered. And childhood was not separate from danger. Imagine children gathering berries at the edge of the forest. Suddenly, the air grows still. Birds stop singing. The oldest child notices and signals to the others. They freeze. A shadow moves among the trees, a predator, watching. Fear rushes through them, but training keeps them still. Slowly, quietly, they back away until they return to the safety of camp. That moment, that calm under fear, is strength too. Children were expected to join the group fully, long before we would call them adults. A girl of 12 might carry her younger sibling for miles, her back aching but steady. A boy of 13 might help drag the leg of a deer, his body trembling with effort but refusing to let go. And all the while, they watched the elders, copied their movements, absorbed their wisdom. Childhood was not a waiting room for adulthood. It was the first chapter of it. Now picture night again. The fire burns low. Around it, the group sits. Elders tell stories, tales of hunts, of spirits, of places where food grows, of dangers to avoid. Children sit with wide eyes, their minds painting pictures in the firelight. These stories were more than entertainment. They were survival, wrapped in memory. A story of a beast by the river warned them not to drink there. A story of a sacred cave told them where to find shelter. To remember the story was to live. To forget, it could mean death. And so memory became muscle too. Children carried it inside them as carefully as they carried the tools their parents shaped. Think of how different childhood is today. Schools, playgrounds, books, toys, safe places to grow. For them, every hour was both danger and opportunity. And yet, out of this harshness, they became strong in ways we can barely imagine. By the time they were teenagers, their bodies were already shaped by work and movement. Shoulders broad from carrying loads, legs hard from endless walking, lungs deep from running across plains, hands quick and sure from making tools. They were not trained for sport. They were trained by life, and life was unrelenting. Even rest was different. Modern children rest on soft beds with pillows and warmth. Ancient children slept on hides, sometimes damp, sometimes cold. Their dreams were not of cartoons or screens, but of hunts, storms, firelight, shadows. Sleep itself was strength. To wake up each morning, stiff and sore but still ready to work, that was resilience written into the bones. There is a beauty in imagining it. Children running barefoot through tall grass, laughter mixing with the rustle of wind, while their parents prepare for the hunt. A young boy trying to climb a tree, slipping, falling, but trying again until he succeeds. A girl helping her mother grind roots, her arms sore but determined. These moments shaped not only muscle, but courage. The courage to try, to fail, to endure. Every child who lived through this world became a living monument of strength, and their survival, their learning, their persistence built the foundation for everything that came after. Without them, there would have been no hunters, no gatherers, no storytellers, no future. And so, childhood in the time of cavemen was not a soft season. It was fire and stone. It was cuts and bruises. It was laughter and pain side by side. It was strength rising in small bodies until it became unbreakable. By the time those children reached their teenage years, they had already endured more than most modern adults will in a lifetime. Their muscles remembered work, their minds remembered danger, their hearts remembered loss, and yet they still laughed, still played, still grew, because strength is not only the absence of weakness, it is the ability to keep living even when life is hard. And when those children finally crossed the invisible line into adulthood, their bodies and minds were already sharpened, ready to face the endless demands of survival. Because in the world of our ancestors, growing up meant more than learning. It meant becoming strength itself. And yet, as strong as childhood made them, it was only the beginning. For the real test of their strength waited in the wild beyond the firelight. Chapter 3. Bodies forged by living strength in the ancient world was not built in gyms or measured in contests. It was built in every breath, in every step, in every task that filled the long days and nights of survival. The body of a caveman was not shaped by choice, but by life itself. To live was to work. To work was to grow strong. Imagine the daily rhythm. Dawn breaks, the fire smolders low, and the air is cool. A man rises from a bed of furs and hides. His back is stiff, his shoulders sore. Yet he stands, stretches, and begins moving. His first task may be walking miles to track animals, or climbing hills to scout for danger, or pulling heavy stones to clear a path. His body is lean, built not from fat, but from muscle that has known nothing but use. Picture his arms, not swollen like the arms of modern bodybuilders, but long, sinewy cords of muscle shaped by pulling, dragging, throwing. Every day he carries wood, lifts hides, throws stones, pulls at ropes of twisted fiber. His grip is unbreakable because tools and weapons demand it. His fingers, thick and scarred, know the weight of stone axes and the burn of rope cutting into skin. A handshake with him would feel like iron. Now look at his legs. They are carved by walking, endless walking. Miles across plains, through forests, up hills, across rivers. To follow the herd, to find water, to escape predators. The calves are strong, the thighs hard, the knees toughened by strain. Even the feet, scarred and calloused, are like leather, tough enough to walk on, sharp stone and hot earth. A caveman's legs were his greatest tool, carrying him across landscapes that would break most of us in a single day. But strength was not only muscle, it was lungs and heart. Imagine running after an animal not for minutes, but for hours. Not sprinting, but a steady, relentless jog across heat and dust. This is called persistence hunting. A man or woman would follow a deer or antelope under the sun, never letting it rest. The animal, faster in short bursts, would grow tired, its body overheating. But the human, with sweat cooling the skin and lungs trained by endless running, would keep going. Step by step, mile by mile, until the animal collapsed. Victory came not from speed, but from endurance. And endurance lived in the lungs, the heart, the will. Think of how they carried. A kill might weigh more than a man. A deer, a boar, a heavy load of roots or wood. They dragged it across dirt, pulled it over rocks, shared the weight with others. Their shoulders bore rope, their backs bent under strain, their necks stiffened by carrying. This daily lifting shaped them in ways no modern workout can. They did not lift for sets or for show. They lifted because it had to be done. And they lifted until it was finished. Even the women, often imagined as weaker, carried burdens we can hardly imagine. They hauled water in containers made of skin, carried children on their hips for miles, bent low for hours grinding roots, pounded nuts with stones until their arms trembled. Their backs were broad, their arms thick with work. To them, strength was not a performance. It was survival. But the body was also tough in ways beyond muscle. Skin was hardened by sun and wind. Scars told stories of falls, cuts, burns. Bones were denser, thicker than ours today, because they carried weight constantly. Teeth wore down from chewing raw roots, tough meat, gritty grains mixed with sand. Their bodies were not perfect, not polished, not smooth, but they were unbreakable in ways modern bodies are not. And what about pain? For us, pain is something to avoid. For them, it was constant. Every step might bring a cut, a bruise, a thorn. Every tool might slip and slice a hand. Every fire might burn fingers. But they kept going. Pain was a teacher, not an enemy. They learned to push through it, to work with it, to ignore it when needed. Imagine pulling a thorn from your foot and continuing to walk miles, or cutting your hand on stone and still finishing the tool. This was the way of life. Pain was not an excuse. It was a companion. Strength also showed in their balance with the land. Their bodies adapted to climb trees, to crawl into caves, to swim rivers. They did not specialize in one movement. They were generalists of survival, capable of many things. Their flexibility, their coordination, their awareness of space, all of it was strength. Watch a child today climb a jungle gym, then imagine that child growing up climbing trees for fruit, balancing on rocks over rivers, leaping ditches to follow animals. Multiply that by years, by necessity, by hunger, and you see how their bodies were shaped. Even rest was different. Muscles did not recover on soft mattresses. They rested on the ground, on hides, on earth. Sleep came after exhaustion, not comfort. The body learned to repair itself under harder conditions. This constant cycle of strain and recovery made them resilient, hard to break. And yet, strength was not only physical, it was mental too. To push through hunger, through cold, through loss, that demanded a will as strong as bone. Imagine walking for 2 days with no food, still searching, still hoping. Imagine sitting through storms and darkness, holding children close, waiting for dawn. Imagine losing a friend to an animal and still rising the next day to hunt again. This was strength of spirit, as real as any muscle. But there was also joy. Strength was not built in misery alone. Around the fire they laughed. In the hunt, they shouted with excitement. Children raced each other. Families embraced after victories. Love and laughter were part of survival too. They gave meaning to the work, fuel to the endurance, warmth to the fire of life. And that warmth itself was a kind of strength. The strength to keep going not just for oneself, but for others. So when we look back and imagine the body of a caveman, we must not only see muscle, we must see the whole being: scarred skin, thick bones, steady lungs, sharp eyes, calloused hands, strong legs, and within it all, a heart that endured, that kept beating in a world that gave no mercy. Their strength was not special to them. It was ordinary, because everyone lived this way. To be weak was to die. To be strong was to live. And so each body was forged like iron, hammered by the blows of daily life, cooled in the fire of survival. And still, for all their strength, they were never invincible. A fall from a cliff, a deep wound, a broken bone. These could end a life. But their strength made the difference between life and death again and again. It gave them a chance, and that chance was everything. Think of your own body now. Think of how it feels to climb stairs, to lift heavy bags, to walk far. Now imagine doing that every day, without pause, without choice. That was their life. That was their gym. That was how their bodies were forged, not by desire, but by demand. And in the end, this forging created something we still carry in ourselves. The strength of our ancestors is written in our very blood, in our bones, in our muscles, waiting to be used. We are softer now, safer now, but the memory of that strength still lives inside us. Yet, even the strongest body needed more than muscle to survive, because beyond the firelight, beyond the camp, lay the true test, the hunt, the place where all strength of body and mind would be pushed to the edge, where failure meant hunger, and hunger meant death. And so, as dawn rises once again, and men and women grip their spears, sharpen their stone points, and prepare to step into the wild, we follow them into the hunt. Chapter 4. The Hunt. The fire still burned low when the hunters rose. The night sky was fading, stars melting into gray. The air was cold enough to bite skin, the kind of chill that woke every muscle. Men and women moved quietly, their feet whispering against earth. Spears were lifted, ropes checked, stone tips sharpened one last time. The hunt was beginning. For them, hunting was not sport. It was life. Without it, there would be no food, no hides for clothing, no bones for tools. Every hunt carried risk, but without it, the group could not survive. And so, with quiet determination, they stepped into the wild. Picture the scene. A line of hunters moving through tall grass, bent low, eyes sharp, their bodies lean, painted with shadows from the rising sun. They move as one, each footfall careful, each breath controlled. Children and elders remain by the fire, tending to camp, waiting. The hunters go forward, away from safety, into the land of animals. The first part of the hunt was always silence. They listened to the calls of birds, to the crack of branches, to the whisper of wind. Every sound carried meaning. A sudden silence of birds meant danger, perhaps a predator nearby. A distant thud might be hooves. Even smell told stories. The musk of deer, the rot of a carcass, the dampness of water. Their senses were sharper than ours, not because they were born that way, but because survival sharpened them. Then came the tracking. The ground told its own story. A bent blade of grass, a fresh print in mud, droppings still warm, a broken branch. Each clue pointed the way, and the hunters followed like readers of a living book. To lose the trail was to lose the hunt. And so, eyes scanned, fingers touched earth, minds pieced together the path of prey. Imagine the focus required. Hours of walking, bent low, in silence, muscles burning, sweat forming even in the cool morning. Yet not one complained. Not one broke the quiet. They knew the prize waited ahead, and patience was the first weapon of the hunter. At last, the tracks grew fresher. The group slowed, hearts quickened. Ahead, among trees, the shape of deer appeared, a herd grazing in morning light. The hunters froze, their bodies still as stone. Breath held, every sound now a danger. The wrong step, the wrong noise, and the herd would scatter, vanishing into forest and grass. Now the hunters began their silent dance. Some circled wide, moving like shadows to cut off escape. Others crouched low, creeping closer, spears in hand. They worked as one, wordless, guided by years of practice. This was not chaos. It was rhythm, a rhythm as old as humanity. One hunter stepped too quickly. A twig cracked. The herd lifted their heads, ears twitching. For a breath, the world froze. Then, a burst of movement. The deer bolted, hooves pounding earth, the air alive with sound. The hunters leapt, spears raised, voices shouting now not for silence, but for force. This was the chase. Legs pumping, arms swinging, bodies straining. The hunters did not need to catch the deer immediately. They needed to keep them running, to tire them, to break their spirit. This was persistence hunting. The strength of human lungs against the speed of animal legs. Imagine the ground shaking beneath you as you run, the air tearing into your lungs, the heat rising as the sun climbs. The deer are faster, but you keep going. One falls behind, weaker than the rest. The hunters focus on it, voices echoing, spears flashing. They run not for minutes, but for hours. Sweat soaks them, legs burn, yet they do not stop. Step by step, they close the gap. Finally, the animal falters. Its chest heaves, its legs stumble, foam forms at its mouth. The hunters surround it. Spears rise, in a blur of motion. They strike. Stone tips pierce hide. Ropes twist. Bodies lunge. The deer collapses, its life spilling into earth. Silence falls. The chase is over. But the work is not. The kill must be honored. Some hunters stand guard, watching for predators drawn by blood. Others kneel, working quickly. With stone knives they cut, slice, separate. Meat is divided, bones kept, hide stripped. Nothing is wasted. Every part has a purpose: food, tools, clothing. The animal gave its life, and in return, it would give life to the people. This was not cruelty. This was survival. And with it came respect. Imagine the strength required. A body heavy with muscle and bone must be lifted, carried. Hunters sling chunks of meat across shoulders, drag hides behind them, share the weight between many. The walk back to camp is slow, but filled with pride. They return not empty-handed, but with proof of their endurance. The fire waits, the children wait, the elders wait. The hunt has given life once more. Around the fire, the meat is cooked. The smell rises into the air, rich and heavy. Children's eyes shine with hunger, elders smile with relief. The hunters eat first, rewarded for their risk. Then the rest share. The camp fills with chewing, laughter, warmth. For a night, there is enough. But the hunt was never only about food. It was also about spirit. Each kill reminded them of their place in the world, not above animals, but among them. Stronger in some ways, weaker in others, but always part of the same struggle to survive. They saw themselves in the deer, in the wolf, in the bird. Each hunt was a reminder. Strength meant life, but life was always fragile. And yet not every hunt ended in success. Sometimes the prey escaped. Sometimes hunters returned empty, tired, hungry, defeated. Sometimes a hunter was injured, gored by a tusk, trampled by hooves, bitten by a predator that stole the kill. The hunt carried danger as well as reward. Every step into the wild was a gamble. Still, they hunted again. Failure did not stop them. Hunger did not allow rest. Strength was not just about spears and muscles. It was about returning to the chase, even when weary, even when wounded, even when hope was thin. That persistence, that refusal to quit, was the greatest strength of all. And so the hunt was the beating heart of their world. It forged their bodies, sharpened their senses, tested their courage, and bound them together. Each success meant life. Each failure taught lessons. Each chase carved strength deeper into muscle and bone. Picture, for a moment, a young boy watching his first hunt. His eyes wide as he sees the herd run, his breath caught as spears fly, his heart racing as the animal falls. He sees his father's sweat, his mother's skill, his people's unity. He knows one day he will join them. And in that knowing, strength grows within him too. The hunt was never just about the animal. It was about the people it fed, the courage it demanded, the lessons it carried. It was about survival written into muscle, bone, spirit. It was about becoming part of something larger, the endless dance between hunter and hunted. And when the fire burned high that night, when meat sizzled and laughter filled the dark, when children chewed and elders nodded, strength was not only in the muscles of the hunters, it was in the unity of the group, in the warmth of sharing, in the fire that pushed back the night. Strength was not only forged in the chase, it was also forged in the feast that followed. But beyond the circle of firelight, the night still held dangers. Eyes glowed in the darkness, watching. Predators smelled blood, heard laughter, waited for weakness. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin again. Tomorrow, strength would be tested once more. Chapter 5. The enemies of strength. Strength alone was never enough. Even the strongest hunter, the fastest runner, the one with lungs like fire and arms like stone, could fall, because the world was full of enemies, and not all of them could be fought with spears. The first enemy was hunger. Hunger was a shadow that followed everywhere. After the feast, after the laughter, after the meat was gone, hunger returned. It lived in the stomach like a whisper that grew louder with each passing hour. A hunt could fail. A river could run dry. Roots could be scarce. Berries spoiled. Nuts too few. Days could pass with nothing. Imagine walking for hours with an empty stomach, legs heavy, head light. Every step feels harder, every sound sharper. The body begins to eat itself, muscle fading, energy draining. Even the strongest cannot fight hunger forever. Hunger makes hands shake, makes eyes blur, makes decisions slow. In time, hunger can break the body and spirit more surely than any predator. And hunger often came with its twin, thirst. Water was life. Without it, the tongue cracked, the lips bled, the skin burned. Hunters knew where streams flowed, where hidden springs bubbled, but droughts came, rivers dried, rains failed. To walk without water was torture. To drink dirty water was risk. Illness could follow, fever rising, stomach twisting, life slipping away. Hunger and thirst were the oldest, cruelest enemies, always waiting, always striking when people were weakest. The second enemy was cold. Night could freeze bone. Winter winds cut through hides and furs. Snow buried food, rivers turned to stone, and fire became more precious than gold. The strong could last longer, but no one escaped the bite of cold. Fingers stiffened, feet numbed, breath turned to mist. Without fire, without shelter, even the strongest warrior could lie down in snow and never rise again. And then came heat. The sun could burn as fiercely as the cold could bite. Under its weight, skin blistered, lips cracked, sweat poured until none was left. Hunters collapsed in fields, prey escaped while men gasped on the ground. Heat was a silent thief, stealing strength little by little until nothing remained. The third enemy was disease, invisible, silent, merciless. A cut that festered, a cough that grew worse, a fever that burned without end. People did not know the names of sickness, but they knew its power. One day a man was strong, the next day weak, the next day gone. Whole groups could be struck. Children coughed, elders shivered. Hunters lay unable to rise. Disease was feared because no spear could kill it, no fire could chase it, no strength could stop it. And then there were predators, eyes in the night, shadows in the grass. The earth itself seemed to hold teeth waiting to strike. Lions, wolves, bears, leopards, all stronger, faster, sharper than humans. One misstep, one wrong turn, one unlucky moment, and the hunter could become the hunted. Picture the scene. a hunter carrying meat back to camp, the smell rising into the air. From the darkness, a lion follows. Muscles ripple beneath golden fur, paws silent as death. The hunter feels eyes on his back. His grip tightens on the spear. His heart races. He knows he is not the only predator here. The lion leaps, a blur of power. The hunter thrusts, shouts. Others rush to help. It is chaos. Roars, screams, blood. If lucky, the group drives the lion away. If not, another body is added to the earth. Even smaller predators were dangerous. Snakes hidden in grass, spiders with poison fangs, swarms of insects carrying fever. A single bite, a single sting could end a life. Nature did not care for strength. It struck the careless, the unlucky, the tired. The fourth enemy was injury. Muscles tore, bones broke, wounds bled. A fall from a cliff, a misstep on rock, a spear slipping in hand. Even small cuts could grow deadly when dirt entered, when infection spread. Without modern medicine, without bandages, without healing knowledge, the body had only itself. Some healed, scarred, but alive. Others did not. And strength was no shield when blood poured too quickly, when bone cracked too deeply. But perhaps the hardest enemy of all was fear. Fear lived inside the mind, waiting. Fear could freeze a hunter when the lion roared. Fear could make a man hesitate with his spear. Fear could make the body weak even when muscles were strong. Fear could spread from one person to the group, like fire leaping from tree to tree. And yet, fear also saved lives. It warned of danger, told when to run, when to hide. Fear was both friend and foe, and balancing it was its own strength. Now imagine all these enemies coming at once. Hunger weakening legs, cold numbing fingers, fear gripping the heart, a predator circling in darkness, a wound bleeding from a fall. In those moments, strength alone was never enough. It was endurance, spirit, unity, and luck that decided life or death. And still, people survived. They found ways to fight these enemies, not always with force, but with cleverness. They built fires to push back cold and predators. They learned to store food, to gather roots, to find safe water. They healed wounds with plants, soothed fevers with rest, comforted the sick with touch and song. They did not face enemies alone. They faced them together. Strength, then, was not only in the arm holding a spear. It was also in the arms that carried the weak, the hands that shared food, the voices that gave courage. Even the strongest hunter could fall, but the group could rise. This was the greatest weapon against the enemies of strength, unity. Still, there were times when unity failed, when enemies won. The fire could not last against winter winds. The hunt could not fill empty stomachs. The strongest bodies could not fight fever. In those times, people mourned, wept, buried, and still rose the next day to keep going. Because the greatest enemy of all was despair, and the greatest strength was the refusal to give in to it. So the caveman lived, surrounded by enemies. Some seen, some unseen. Some fought with spears, some fought only with hope. Each day was a battle, each night a gamble. Strength kept them alive, but enemies reminded them always of their fragility. And yet, in the face of all these enemies, people laughed. They told stories by fire, they sang songs, they watched stars. They found joy in children's laughter, in warm meals, in safe mornings. Against enemies that seemed unstoppable, this joy was itself a form of strength. The enemies of strength never left. They always waited. Hunger returned, cold returned, predators returned, disease returned. But so too did courage, unity, and the will to fight another day. And in that endless balance, humanity learned its greatest lesson. Strength was not the absence of enemies. Strength was the power to keep living despite them. But there was one more enemy, one not outside but inside, the battle within the mind. Doubt, sorrow, memory, dreams. These two tested strength in ways no spear could win. And it is to this hidden battlefield that we now turn. Chapter 6. The battle. Within, the world outside was full of dangers. Hunger, predators, cold winds, hot suns. But the greatest battles were not always out there in the grass or the forest. Many of the hardest fights happened inside the mind. Picture a hunter walking alone at night. The moon is thin, the stars faint. Every shadow seems alive. Every sound, an owl, a crack of a branch, the sigh of wind, feels like a predator waiting. His heart races, his palms sweat. His legs are strong, his spear is sharp, yet fear makes his body tremble. This was the first battlefield, the war against fear. Fear could save a life. It made eyes wide, ears sharp, feet ready to run. But fear could also paralyze. A hunter who froze at the wrong moment would fall. A mother too afraid to step into the river might see her child starve. Fear had to be managed, balanced. Too little, and one became reckless. Too much, and one became helpless. Strength of mind was learning to live with fear without letting it rule. Another battle was with despair. Days of hunger, nights of cold, friends lost to predators or sickness. When loss piled high, the spirit grew heavy. Despair whispered, "Why go on? Why fight? Why suffer?" Muscles could still move, but the will to move faded. And when the will faded, even the strongest body failed. But cavemen were not only muscles and fear. They had something more, something no animal had in such power. They had imagination. Imagination was a torch in the dark. It let them see beyond the moment, beyond the pain. A man could be starving, yet picture the feast that might come tomorrow. A child could be cold, yet dream of the fire they would build. Imagination was not weakness, it was survival. Imagination gave birth to hope. Hope was strength of the spirit. Hope whispered, "Tomorrow may be better. The hunt may succeed. The river may flow again. The child may live." Hope made tired legs walk farther, made weak hands grip the spear tighter, made empty stomachs wait one more day. Without hope, muscles meant nothing. With hope, even weakness could last long enough to become strength again. Memory, too, was a battlefield. People remembered loss, the friend who never returned from the hunt, the child who coughed through the night, the elder taken by fever. Memory hurt, cut deep, made eyes heavy with sorrow, but memory also gave guidance. It reminded them where food had once grown, where rivers flowed, where predators prowled. It told them stories of survival, victories over hunger and cold. Memory was both wound and weapon, pain and wisdom. And then there were dreams. Not the dreams of sleep, but the bigger ones. The dream of finding better land. The dream of a safe place where fire burned all night. The dream of children living longer, of hunger fading, of strength lasting. Dreams gave direction. They made people move, explore, risk. Without dreams, the group would sit still until death found them. With dreams, they crossed rivers, climbed mountains, followed stars. But dreams also carried danger. They could lead to disappointment, to failure, to loss. A dream of plenty could end in emptiness. Yet still, people dreamed. Because the battle inside required more than survival. It required meaning, and dreams gave meaning to the endless struggle. Sometimes the mind's battle was even stranger. In the firelight, shapes seemed alive. Shadows danced like spirits. The crackle of fire spoke like voices. People began to imagine not only tomorrow, but worlds beyond. Spirits, gods, ancestors. These were born from the battle within, the need to explain, to believe, to find courage against the unknown. And in believing, people found strength. A prayer before the hunt steadied the hand. A ritual after a death comforted the heart. Faith, in its earliest form, was another shield in the battle of the mind. But the mind was also tricky. It could deceive. Fear could grow larger than truth. Shadows could seem like monsters. The rustle of grass could feel like death. Doubt could whisper louder than courage. The battle was not won once. It had to be fought every day. Each sunrise, each hunt, each night by the fire, the mind had to be steadied, calmed, strengthened. Children learned this battle early. They were taught not only to throw stones or carry wood, but also to face fear. They watched elders stand firm before predators, watched mothers soothe babies through sickness, watched fathers walk into the wild even when tired. By seeing courage, they learned it. By sharing stories, they inherited strength of spirit. And stories were perhaps the greatest weapon in this inner war. Around the fire, tales were told of great hunts, of clever tricks, of escapes from death. These stories were more than entertainment. They were training for the mind. They showed how courage could win, how unity could save, how hope could carry one through. They reminded the group of victories, not just defeats. They built courage in children and reminded elders of why they had endured. Imagine a child listening to such a story, eyes wide, heart beating fast, picturing a hero facing a lion, outsmarting it, living another day. The child feels fear, but also pride, feels weakness, but also courage. The story becomes part of them, a seed of strength planted inside. Later, when fear grips them in the dark, that story whispers, "You are not alone." Others have faced this. You can too. This was the secret of the battle within. No one fought it alone. Strength of mind grew in groups, in shared firelight, in voices telling and retelling. Just as hunters shared meat, they shared courage. Just as they carried each other's weight, they carried each other's hope. And yet, some battles were fought alone. A man lost in the forest, a woman hiding from predators, a child separated from the group. In those moments, the mind became both the enemy and the savior. Fear could crush, but memory of songs, of faces, of voices could push them onward. Loneliness could break, but the dream of reunion could keep them alive. So strength was not only in muscle, not only in spear. It was in silence, in song, in memory, in imagination. It was in the mind's power to endure even when the body shook, even when the heart ached, even when the night felt endless. And this battle within shaped humanity as much as any hunt or tool. For it was the mind that dreamed of fire before fire was made. It was the mind that pictured a stone tool before it was shaped. It was the mind that believed survival was possible when all seemed lost. Without the mind's strength, the body's strength would have meant nothing. In the end, the caveman's true strength was not only in arms or legs. It was in the invisible battles fought in the heart and head, against fear, despair, memory, doubt, for hope, meaning, courage, and dreams. The world outside was hard, but the world inside could be even harder. And winning there was what allowed humanity to keep rising, step by step, into the future. But the story of strength did not stop with the mind, for there was another power, another form of strength, born not in individuals, but in the group itself, the strength of many, the strength of together. And that is where we now turn. Chapter 7, The Strength of Many. One man with a spear could kill a rabbit, but many men, moving as one, could bring down a mammoth. This was the secret of human strength. Alone, a person was weak, slower than the horse, smaller than the bear, softer than the lion. But together, they became something no other creature on earth could match. Imagine a hunt. A group of hunters crouch in the grass. Ahead, a herd of deer grazes, ears twitching, eyes sharp. If one hunter rushed alone, the deer would scatter. But with many, the hunters spread wide, forming a circle, moving silently. Step by step, they close in. One shouts, another throws a spear, others rush. The deer panic, run straight into the trap. The hunt succeeds, not because of one man's strength, but because of the strength of many. Unity gave safety too. When night fell, predators prowled the dark. A lone fire could be snuffed out. A lone sleeper attacked. But many fires together, many eyes awake, many spears ready. This made lions think twice. Together, people built circles of fire, circles of song, circles of courage. One person's fear was balanced by another's calm. One person's weakness was balanced by another's strength. Even children added to the strength of many. They were not yet hunters, but they carried wood, fetched water, watched younger ones, listened to stories. Their laughter lifted heavy hearts. Their curiosity pushed the group forward, asking, searching, exploring. The group was not only muscle, it was voices, hands, hearts, and minds woven together. The elders, too, were part of this strength. Their bodies bent, their speed gone, but their memory deep. They knew where rivers had flowed, where animals had crossed, which plants healed wounds, which roots cured fevers. Their knowledge was as valuable as any spear. To forget the wisdom of elders was to grow weak, to repeat mistakes, to wander blind. Mothers carried another form of strength, the power to give life and guard it. They fed, they soothed, they protected. They taught children how to shape tools, how to walk quietly, how to listen to wind and water. They sang songs that calmed fear, told stories that planted courage. Their strength was not always in arms, but in patience, in care, in endurance. And without that, the group could not survive. But the strength of many was not only in survival, it was also in joy. Around the fire, laughter rose, songs echoed, dances shook the ground. These moments mattered as much as the hunt. They made people feel alive, gave reason to endure. A group that laughed together was stronger than a group that only fought. Think of a child waking in the night, frightened by shadows. If alone, fear might break them. But surrounded by many, hearing voices, seeing fire, feeling arms wrap around them, the fear fades. That comfort, that sense of belonging, was itself a shield, a strength no predator could touch. This unity also gave rise to fairness. Food was shared, work was divided, victories celebrated together. If one hunter killed an animal, the meat was not his alone. It was shared with the group, children, elders, mothers, even those too weak to hunt. Because everyone knew, tomorrow it might be their turn to fail, and they would need others. Sharing was not kindness alone, it was survival. Of course, unity was not perfect. Sometimes there was conflict. One wanted more meat, another wanted more rest, another disagreed on where to go. Voices rose, tempers flared. But even in anger, people understood. Division was dangerous. To break apart was to grow weak. So they learned to settle, to compromise, to forgive. This too was strength, the ability to stay together despite differences. And together, humans achieved what no other creatures could. They built traps too large for one man to make. They chased animals across miles, each hunter taking turns, exhausting prey until it collapsed. They carried the wounded back to camp. They buried the dead with care, showing even in sorrow the strength of many. Unity also shaped their minds. Alone, a person might see only what lay before their eyes. Together, they saw more. One noticed tracks, another remembered rain, another guessed where the herd might move. When voices combined, knowledge grew. Decisions became wiser, survival more likely. This was perhaps humanity's greatest weapon. Not the spear, not the fire, not the muscle, but cooperation. Wolves hunted in packs, yes. Lions fought together, yes. But no animal cooperated like humans. Humans could plan, share, invent, teach, and pass on knowledge. The strength of many stretched across time, across generations. Children learned from parents, parents from grandparents, knowledge flowing like a river, each drop adding to the next. The strength of many was also in protection of the weak. An injured hunter could still be fed. A sick child could still be cared for. An elder could still share wisdom, even when legs failed. This kept more alive, gave more chances for survival, gave the group endurance across years. Where other creatures left their weak behind, humans carried theirs forward. And in carrying, they grew stronger together. Unity even gave courage in death. When one fell, the group mourned, but together. Tears shared, burdens shared, grief shared. Alone, sorrow might crush a person. Together, sorrow became bearable. Together, life went on. So strength was not only in the arm, not only in the mind, but in the many. Alone, a man was fragile. Together, people were unstoppable. This was the secret that lifted humanity above even the strongest beasts. Imagine now a vast plain. A group of humans walks across it, children laughing, mothers carrying, fathers hunting, elders guiding. They are not the fastest, not the strongest, not the fiercest, but together they are something greater. They are survival given shape. They are strength multiplied. They are the beginning of what we now call humanity. And yet, the strength of many did not stop here, for with unity came the next great leap. Tools, weapons, and fire. Creations born from hands, shared by voices, improved across generations. The strength of many would become the strength of invention. And that is where the story leads next. Chapter 8, Tools of Strength. For millions of years, strength meant only muscle, bone, and courage. But then came something new, something that changed everything. At first, the world belonged to those with claws, fangs, and armor. Lions had teeth like knives. Bears had bodies like walls. Rhinos wore shields of bone. Humans had none of this. They were soft, slow, and small compared to the beasts around them. But humans carried in their hands a gift more powerful than claw or fang, the power to shape. It began with stone. Picture a man picking up a sharp-edged rock. He strikes it against another, chips flying, again, until the stone holds an edge like a knife. That knife could cut meat, scrape hides, slice wood. The man had made his first weapon, his first helper. In that moment, his strength grew beyond muscle. He now carried the edge of a predator in his hand. Soon, stones became more than knives. They became hammers, axes, spear tips. A stick sharpened with a stone edge became a spear. A spear thrown from a distance meant no need to wrestle beasts with bare hands. A group of hunters, each with a spear, could face creatures many times their size. Strength had multiplied, but it did not stop there. Fire came next, and fire was like lightning captured in a hand. At first, it was found. Flames from a storm, burning grass after lightning. People feared it, but they also saw its power. Slowly, carefully, they learned to keep it alive, feeding embers with moss, protecting coals and hollow bones. Fire meant warmth on cold nights, light in dark caves, safety from predators who feared the flames. Fire also changed food. Raw meat was tough, hard to chew, sometimes dangerous. Cooked meat was softer, richer, easier to eat. Cooked roots and grains gave more energy. Fire unlocked strength hidden in food, letting bodies grow stronger, brains grow sharper. It was not only survival, it was transformation. With tools and fire, humans began to rise above the world of beasts. But the real power was not the stone, not the flame, but the sharing. One person could not invent everything, but many people, across many generations, added to the knowledge. A sharper edge, a straighter spear, a better way to keep fire alive. Each invention built upon another, like steps rising toward the future. Think of a child watching an elder shape stone. The child watches, learns, copies, fails, tries again. Slowly the skill passes on. That child grows, teaches another. In this way, tools did not die with the maker. They lived, grew, improved. Strength multiplied across time. Tools also changed the way humans work together. With ropes, hides could be stretched. With bone needles, clothes could be sewn. With baskets, food could be carried. Work that once needed many hands could now be made easier by invention. The group's strength grew not only in numbers, but in cleverness. Weapons, too, changed the balance of power. Spears, bows, and arrows meant hunters could strike from a distance. No longer did humans need to match beasts in raw strength. Distance became their armor, strategy their weapon. They learned to trap, to surround, to outthink. Strength was no longer about the biggest body. It was about the sharpest mind and the best tool. Even shelters became tools. Branches, hides, stones shaped into homes against wind and rain. A cave was no longer just a hole in the rock. It was transformed with fire, walls, and order. A home meant safety. A home meant the group could rest, heal, and plan. This too was strength. The strength to make the world bend instead of bending to the world. But tools also brought new battles. A sharper weapon could protect, but it could also harm. Conflict between groups became more dangerous. The spear that killed a beast could also kill a man. The fire that warmed could also burn. Strength grew, but so did responsibility. The group had to learn control, patience, fairness. Otherwise, their own tools could destroy them. Still, invention marched forward, from stone to bone, from wood to rope, from fire to shelter. Each step widened the gap between humans and the beasts around them. The lion still had claws. The bear still had muscle. But humans had something else, something that grew without limit: imagination. And with imagination, they could shape tools beyond anything nature had given them. One day, a man tied a stone tip to a stick with sinew. The first spear with a secure head was born. Another day, someone bent wood and string, sending arrows farther than any spear. Another day, fire hardened wood, making points sharper and stronger. These were not random accidents. They were the fruit of minds that watched, remembered, dreamed. And with each new tool, survival grew easier. A trap meant less chasing. A basket meant less hunger in lean times. A needle meant warmer clothes in winter. The group grew not only stronger, but freer. Freed from endless struggle, they could dream more, create more, become more. So, strength was no longer only in muscle. It was in hands that shaped, in minds that imagined, in groups that shared. A single stone knife was small, but behind it lay 1,000 years of thought, trial, and memory. Every tool was a story of strength passed down through time. And yet, tools did more than protect. They changed identity. A spear made a hunter, a needle made a maker, Fire made a keeper. Tools gave people roles, meaning, and pride. They became more than bodies. They became creators. And in creation, they found a strength greater than survival. Even today, that legacy remains. The phone in your hand, the light above your head, the clothes you wear, they are tools, shaped not by one, but by many, across countless years. The strength of tools is the strength of humanity itself. But the story does not end here. For as tools shaped people, people shaped memory, story, and belief. And from those stories came yet another kind of strength, the strength of meaning. And that is where the journey now turns. Chapter 9. The strength of meaning. A spear could pierce the hide of a beast. A fire could drive away the cold and the dark. But what gave people courage when the night was endless, when the hunt failed, when death came close? The answer was meaning. From the beginning, humans were not satisfied with survival alone. They wanted to understand, to explain, to find purpose in a world that was vast, dangerous, and mysterious. And so they told stories. Imagine a cave on a cold night. Flames dance against stone walls. Shadows flicker like spirits. Around the fire, a child asks, "Why does the sun rise?" An elder answers, not with silence, but with story. The sun is a great fire carried across the sky by a mighty hunter. When he tires, the night comes, but he always returns. That story gave more than explanation. It gave comfort. It turned chaos into order, fear into faith. The world became less terrifying when wrapped in meaning. Stories also gave courage. To face a hunt, a warrior might believe the spirit of his ancestors walked beside him. To face death, a mother might believe her child's soul would live on in the wind, the stars, the earth. Belief turned sorrow into hope, weakness into strength. Meaning shaped rituals too. Before a hunt, people painted their bodies, sang songs, danced around fire. This was not only celebration, it was preparation. Ritual gave them focus, unity, confidence. When they entered the forest, they carried not only spears, but also spirit. Cave paintings were another kind of ritual. Deep inside dark caverns, people painted animals, bison, horses, mammoths, outlined in red and black. Why? Some believe these paintings were prayers, asking for a good hunt. Others think they were lessons, teaching children what animals looked like, how they moved. Whatever the reason, the act of painting gave meaning, turning stone walls into sacred places. Burials tell us the same. Archaeologists find graves filled with beads, shells, weapons, flowers. These were not just bodies laid in the ground. They were lives honored, remembered. To bury someone with care was to say, "You matter. You are not forgotten." That act gave comfort to the living and dignity to the dead. Meaning was strength because it gave reason to endure. A hunter could face danger if he believed he fought for his family. A mother could suffer hunger if she believed her sacrifice kept her children alive. A child could keep walking across endless plains if told they journeyed toward a promised place. Belief gave power where muscle alone might fail. Songs carried meaning too. Around fires, voices rose in rhythm. The words may be lost to time, but the echoes remain. Songs made people feel together, part of something larger. They lifted weary hearts, gave courage before battle, soothed fear in storms. Even today, when we sing, we feel a strength beyond ourselves. That is the same strength that once echoed in caves and plains. Dances were the same. Bodies moved together, stamping, leaping, circling the fire. The dance was more than movement. It was memory, teaching, story, and power. Children learned rhythm. Hunters practiced balance. The group felt united. Dance was survival, disguised as celebration. And from story, song, and dance came memory. Lessons passed not through books, but through voices. A story of a great flood warned future generations of rising rivers. A story of a clever hunter taught patience. A story of a foolish man who ignored signs became a warning. Memory was muscle for the mind. It carried strength across time. This strength of meaning also stretched across generations. Elders did not only teach how to make tools, they taught why life mattered. Children grew not only into hunters and gatherers, but into storytellers, singers, dancers. Meaning gave identity, purpose, and pride. Even fear itself became a source of meaning. Thunder, lightning, storms, death, things humans could not control, were woven into stories of gods, spirits, and forces. By naming fear, people made it smaller. By giving fear a face, they gave themselves courage to face it. Some groups believed animals had spirits. To kill one was not only survival, it was a sacred act, requiring respect. They whispered prayers, offered thanks, painted images, honored the life taken. This respect made the act of killing bearable, turning necessity into ritual. Others believed the moon and stars were guides. They watched the sky, seeing patterns, making stories. That star is a hunter. That cluster is a mother and her children. That path leads us home. The night sky became a map, a memory, a storybook written in light. Meaning gave humans a strength that no claw or tooth could give. The strength to hope. Hope kept them moving when food was gone. Hope kept them waiting when animals fled. Hope kept them alive through storms and winters. Hope also gave birth to courage. To face a predator, to cross a frozen river, to wander into unknown lands. These acts required more than muscle. They required faith that tomorrow could be better, that life was worth the risk. And in this way, meaning became as vital as fire, as sharp as stone, as strong as muscle. It was invisible, but it held people together. It turned survival into living, struggle into story, pain into purpose. Even today, we carry that strength. The stories we tell, the songs we sing, the beliefs we hold, they give us courage, guide our choices, lift our spirits. They are the same forces that carried our ancestors through the dark. So when you sit by a fire, or look at the stars, or tell a story to a child, you are touching the same strength that once lived in caves and plains. The strength of meaning, the strength that turned fragile humans into enduring survivors. And yet, this strength led to something even greater. Memory, not just as survival, but as legacy. For when people remembered, they built the foundations of culture, identity, and humanity itself, and that is where the journey now turns. Chapter 10. The strength of memory. The fire burns low. Sparks rise, drift into the night, and vanish among the stars. Around the flames, people sit close, their faces glowing with light and shadow. They are tired from the day's hunt, their muscles sore, but their eyes are awake. Tonight is for memory. Memory was another kind of strength, stronger perhaps than muscle or stone. A spear can kill an animal, but it breaks. A fire can warm a night, but it dies. Memory, if passed from one to another, can live forever. It was memory that carried the knowledge of where rivers flowed, where berries grew, where herds traveled. Memory guided footsteps across plains, over mountains, through forests. Imagine a child asking, "Where do we find water?" An elder points to the horizon. Beyond those hills, near the tree shaped like a claw, there is a spring. My father showed me. His father showed him. That memory is a map, invisible but sharper than any line carved in stone. Memory also carried warnings. Do not eat those berries, they sicken the belly. Do not cross that river when the ice is thin, it swallows the unwary. Do not trust the red sky at dawn. It brings storms. These were not written in books. They were carved into minds, spoken in voices, remembered in stories. One mistake might kill a man, but if remembered, it could save generations. Stories were memory in disguise. A tale of a great flood was more than entertainment. It was a warning. Rivers rise, beware the waters. A tale of a clever hunter who tricked a bear was more than fun. It was a lesson. Use your mind, not just your muscle. A tale of a greedy man who kept meat for himself was not just anger, it was teaching. Share, or you weaken the group. Every story told around the fire was memory woven into meaning. The young listened, the old remembered. The group grew stronger. Songs, too, were memory. The rhythm of a chant kept steps together on a long journey. A melody could hold directions. Walk toward the mountain, then follow the river, then turn where the tall trees stand. Even children could remember a song more easily than a long list of words. Music carried knowledge across time. Dance was memory in movement. A hunter acted out the chase of a deer, showing where to aim, how to strike. Children watched, learned, copied. A dance of storms might show how to read the sky. A dance of fire might remind the group how to keep flames alive. To move was to remember, to teach without words. Memory was also kept in objects. A carved bone, a painted rock, a necklace of shells. All these were reminders. A hunter might carry a claw to remember a battle with a lion. A mother might keep a stone to remember a child lost. These objects held stories, turning memory into something that could be touched, held, passed on. But the greatest power of memory was that it connected the living to the dead. When someone died, their body was gone, but their memory remained. Their words lived in stories. Their actions lived in lessons. Their spirit lived in the group's memory. In this way, no one was truly gone. Imagine an elder telling children, "Your grandfather taught me how to strike flint for fire. He is gone, but every spark we light is his gift." The child feels not only sadness but pride. The dead are remembered, and in memory, they live again. Memory was also a bridge across generations. A child learned from a parent, who learned from a grandparent, who learned from someone long ago. Each added their piece, each carried the torch forward. Humanity became a chain of memory, each link connected, each link strong. This chain gave humans an advantage no beast could match. A lion cub learns to hunt by watching its mother, but when she dies, the lessons stop. A human child learns from parents, from grandparents, from the entire group. Lessons do not die with one person. They live in memory, in stories, in culture. And so knowledge grew. Fire kept better, tools shaped sharper, hunts planned smarter, dangers avoided sooner. Memory piled upon memory, like stones stacked into a wall, each generation building higher. Memory also created identity. A group remembered its ancestors, its journeys, its struggles. We are the people who crossed the great river. We are the children of the mountain. We are the ones who follow the stars. Memory told them who they were. Without it, they were only bodies surviving. With it, they were a people. But memory could also divide. One group remembered one story, another remembered a different one. One group honored one ancestor, another honored another. These differences sometimes led to conflict, to separation. Yet even in division, memory gave purpose. Every group carried its story, its identity, its pride. Still, the true strength of memory was in unity. When the young remembered the old, when the group remembered together, they carried more than knowledge. they carried belonging. Memory was not only about what happened, it was about who mattered. Think of a night when food is scarce, when fear is heavy. Someone begins to tell the story of a great hunt long ago, when the group brought down a mammoth and feasted for days. As the story unfolds, hunger eases, courage returns. They remember, we have done this before. We will do it again. That memory is strength enough to face tomorrow. And so memory became the invisible weapon of humanity. Stronger than spears, longer lasting than fire, more powerful than any single body. It was memory that lifted people beyond the moment, that carried the past into the present, that shaped the future. Even now, we live in memory's shadow. The words you speak, the songs you know, the stories you hear, they are echoes of voices long gone, carried forward by countless generations. You are a living vessel of memory, just as your ancestors were. The strength of memory was the strength of continuity, the strength of not beginning from nothing, but from everything that came before. And from memory came something greater still, the power to dream of tomorrow, to imagine what had never yet been, to shape the future before it arrived. And that is where the journey now turns. Chapter 11. The Strength of Imagination. Memory was the bridge to the past. Imagination was the bridge to the future. Long ago, when people sat by firelight, memory reminded them of what had been. But imagination whispered, "What if?" This whisper was different from memory. Memory was solid, built from what happened. Imagination was mist, formed from what had not yet come. But in that mist lay power greater than muscle, fire, or stone, the power to create the unseen. Imagine a hunter staring at a broken spear. Memory tells him, this is how it has always been made. But imagination asks, what if the spear point were sharper? What if the shaft were longer? What if it could fly farther? In that what if, the bow and arrow were born. Or picture a woman watching sparks leap from fire. Memory says, fire warms us. Imagination whispers, what if we carry the fire with us into the dark? What if we use it to cook? What if we shape it to harden wood? Soon, fire was no longer only warmth. It was weapon, tool, teacher. Imagination turned survival into invention. It gave humans the power to see what was not yet real, to see a shelter before it was built, to see a hunt before it was fought, to see a journey before a foot had stepped. With imagination, people could prepare, could dream, could create futures. And imagination was not only in tools, it lived in stories. Around the fire, storytellers painted worlds with words, worlds of gods, of spirits, of heroes, of monsters. Children listened, eyes wide, hearts racing. These stories were more than entertainment. They were practicing. They trained minds to think beyond the present moment, to imagine dangers, to imagine victories, to imagine possibilities. When people imagined, they rehearsed life before it happened. A hunter imagined chasing the deer, and when the chase came, he was ready. A mother imagined her children grown strong, and she fed them carefully. A group imagined storms on the horizon, and they prepared shelter. Imagination was survival in advance, but imagination also gave beauty. A child might draw lines in the sand, not for food, not for safety, but for joy. A singer might create a new melody, not to teach, not to warn, but simply because it was beautiful. Beauty did not feed the body, but it fed the soul, and a fed soul is strong. This beauty was itself a strength. It gave people reasons to smile in hardship, to hope in darkness, to dance when weary. A group that could find joy was a group that could endure. Imagination gave birth to symbols. A line scratched into stone could mean a river. A circle drawn in ash could mean the sun. A pattern painted on a body could mean belonging. Symbols allowed minds to hold ideas, to share them, to dream together. And when groups dreamed together, their strength multiplied. One person might imagine a new way to hunt. Another might imagine a new way to build. Together, they created not just survival, but progress. Imagination also gave courage. To step into unknown lands, people had to believe something waited ahead. They could not see it, but they could imagine it. The vision of better hunting grounds, gentler seasons, safer homes pulled them across deserts, rivers, and mountains. Without imagination, they would have stayed in place. With imagination, they spread across the world. It also made them fearless against the dark. Where memory might say, night is danger, imagination could say, but what if light returns? Where memory said, death is the end, imagination could whisper, what if the spirit continues? In every unknown, imagination offered hope. Even fear itself was shaped by imagination. The shadow in the forest might be only wind in the trees, but imagination turned it into a beast or a spirit. This made people cautious, careful, alive to danger. Sometimes imagination made them afraid of what was not there, but better to fear too much than too little. That fear saved lives. Yet imagination was not only fear, it was vision. When people imagined peace, they made peace. When they imagined feast, they worked toward it. When they imagined tomorrow, they endured today. One of the greatest gifts of imagination was storytelling. Memory kept the past alive. Imagination kept the future alive. A storyteller might say, one day we will find a land where the rivers never dry. The group would listen, believe, and strive. Whether the land was real or not, the hope gave them strength to search. And sometimes, dreams led them to real discoveries. Imagination also gave birth to art. On cave walls, people painted not only what they saw, but what they dreamed. Herds larger than life, hunts filled with spirit animals, visions of power and wonder. These paintings were more than memory. They were imagination made visible, dreams made stone. Think of a child staring at those walls. The child sees not only the animal drawn, but the idea behind it, the power of the hunt, the mystery of the beast, the beauty of the world. That child grows with a mind filled not only with what is, but with what could be. This was the true gift of imagination. It stretched the mind beyond the present moment. A beast thinks only of food, of fight, of now. A human, through imagination, thinks of tomorrow, of meaning, of what lies beyond sight. That was why humans became more than animals. And yet, imagination was not without danger. A dream could inspire courage, but also fear. A vision could unite, but also divide. People who imagined different futures sometimes clashed. Beliefs born from imagination could bring peace or war. The same fire that warmed could burn. Still, without imagination, humanity would never have risen. It was imagination that carried people across seas, over mountains, into skies. It was imagination that shaped not only tools, but dreams, art, love, and hope. Even now, every creation you see began in imagination. The clothes you wear, the books you read, the houses you live in. Once they were only what-ifs in the mind of someone long ago. You, too, are the child of imagination, just as your ancestors were. Imagination was not a luxury. It was strength. The strength to see more than what is. The strength to believe in what might be. The strength to walk into tomorrow before tomorrow arrived. And from imagination came yet another power, the power to build not only tools or stories, but bonds. For when humans imagined together, they created trust, loyalty, friendship, love. They created something greater than the individual. They created community, and that is where the journey now turns. Chapter 12, The Strength of Community. A single human alone in the wild is fragile. A group of humans together is a force that no beast can break. Community was perhaps the greatest strength of all, stronger than muscle, stronger than memory, stronger even than imagination. It was community that turned survival from a struggle into a way of life. Imagine one man hunting alone. He may kill a deer, but how will he carry it? How will he fight off lions that come to steal the meat? How will he defend himself if he is injured? Alone, he is small. Alone, he is weak. Now imagine 10 men and women together. One throws the spear, another blocks the beast, others drag the kill. Children watch, learn, help. Together they succeed. Together they eat. Community was survival. But it was more than that. It was belonging. It was safety in numbers. It was laughter shared in hardship, comfort shared in loss, courage shared in danger. Community made people not just strong, but human. Around the fire, food was divided. A hunter who caught much gave to those who caught little. A gatherer who found berries gave to children who could not search far. Sharing was not kindness alone. It was survival. Because one day, the hunter might come back empty-handed. One day, the gatherer might fall ill. Alone, they would starve. Together, they would live. This sharing created trust. Trust was invisible, but it was weighty as stone. It meant that when danger came, no one ran alone. Trust meant knowing. If I stumble, another will lift me. If I fall sick, another will feed me. If I die, my children will not be left behind. That trust gave courage. It was trust that made hunts possible. To face a mammoth, each hunter had to believe the others would not run. To face lions, each had to know others would fight beside them. Courage was not born from muscle, it was born from community. Community also gave roles. Not everyone needed to do the same thing. The strong carried heavy loads. The swift chased prey. The careful shaped tools. The wise told stories. The gentle cared for children. Each person mattered. Each had value. This web of roles made the group stronger than any single body could be. Even the weak had a place. An old woman, too frail to hunt, could still remember the way to hidden springs. A boy, too small to fight, could still watch the fire and warn of danger. In community, no strength was wasted. Community taught patience. Disagreements happened. One hunter might want to go north, another south. One mother might scold a child too harshly, another might defend him. But in a group, conflict could not last long. If anger grew, it threatened survival. So people learned to calm, to forgive, to listen. Peace was not luxury, it was necessity. This was strength too, the strength of restraint. The lion's power lies in claws, but the human's power lies in peace. For only in peace can many live together. Community also built traditions. A feast after a hunt, a song for the dead, a dance for the change of seasons. These were more than customs, they were glue. They reminded the group of who they were, of what they shared, of why they stayed together. Children grew strong not because they were raised by one mother alone, but by many. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, siblings, all cared. This village raising of children gave resilience. If one parent was lost, the child still had family. Community stretched beyond blood. A stranger might join, and in time become kin. bonds were not always written in birth. They were written in trust, in shared bread, in shared danger. This strength of community also made journeys possible. To cross deserts, people had to depend on one another. To cross seas, they had to row together. No one could migrate alone. Only groups could. And so, together, they spread across the world. But community was not always easy. With numbers came tension. Who gets more meat? Who makes decisions? Who leads? Yet even this struggle shaped humanity. It taught negotiation. It taught balance. Leaders were not always the strongest. They were often the calmest, the ones who could hold the group together. Leadership itself was born from community. Think of a night storm. The wind howls, the fire dims, children cry, fear spreads, but one voice rises steady. Do not fear, the storm will pass. That voice, calm and sure, gives strength greater than any spear. That is the strength of leadership, a gift from community. Community also meant care for the wounded. In animal packs, the injured are often left behind. In human groups, the injured were carried. Archaeologists have found skeletons of people who lived years with broken bones, even missing limbs. They survived because others fed them, protected them, loved them. That love was strength. Love itself may be the deepest strength of community. Love for child, love for partner, love for friend. It binds, it lifts, it endures. It gives reason to fight, reason to hope, reason to live another day. Love is invisible muscle, stronger than any arm. Even death was faced as community. Alone, death is terror. Together, it is ritual, remembrance, passage. The dead were buried with care, with tools, with beads. Community said, "You are not forgotten. You are still one of us." Even in grief, they found strength in one another. And so community was more than survival. It was identity. It was the sense of being part of something greater. Alone, a person was just a body. Together, they were a people. That was the strength that no beast could match. A lion may be stronger, a bear may be fiercer. But humans had one thing no other creature had, the strength of each other. Even now, that strength lives in us. Every city, every family, every friendship is a shadow of those ancient fires. We gather, we share, we trust, we care. That is our oldest inheritance, and it is from this strength that all others grow. For imagination alone is fragile, memory alone is fading, muscle alone is weak. But in community, they come together, and they last. Community was the cradle of humanity. From it rose all other powers, and from it came the strength to dream not only of surviving, but of thriving. And with that strength, humans began to create something new, a legacy that would outlast even themselves. Chapter 13. The Strength of Women. When we imagine the past, our minds often go to hunters with spears, chasing beasts across wide plains. But this picture is only half the truth. The other half, the quieter half, is the strength of women. Their strength was not always loud. It did not always come from muscle alone. But it was steady, constant, and unbreakable. Without it, humanity would not have survived. Think first of mothers. In the Stone Age, every birth was a battle. No hospitals, no medicines, only the body, the breath, the courage of a woman bringing life into the world. Each child was carried for months through hunger, through travel, through cold. Women walked miles, bent to gather food, lifted water, even while heavy with life inside them. That alone was strength beyond measure. And when the child was born, the work only grew harder. To feed an infant meant the mother's own body became food. To keep it warm meant holding it close through freezing nights. To keep it safe meant waking at every sound, listening for wolves, for snakes, for men who might bring harm. The first walls of protection for humanity were not caves, not spears. They were mother's arms. But the strength of women was not only in motherhood, it was in every part of survival. Women gathered food, not as a side task, but as the backbone of the diet. While men might bring back a large animal once in many days, women brought berries, roots, nuts, and plants day after day. These were the meals that kept the group alive when the hunt failed. Their knowledge of plants was a library passed through generations. What could heal? What could poison? What could fill the belly? Women's hands shaped the world as much as men's spears. They tanned hides into clothing. They sewed skins with bone needles into warmth against the cold. They carried wood for fire, water for drinking, children for the future, all often at the same time. Archaeologists studying ancient skeletons found the bones of women with arms as strong as elite athletes today, worn by grinding grain, pounding roots, carrying endless burdens. This was daily labor, invisible but powerful. And women were not only gatherers, some hunted too. In Peru, graves have been found of women buried with hunting tools, proof that in some places, women stood shoulder to shoulder with men in the chase. In the icy north, women followed reindeer herds, throwing spears, carrying kills. The idea that women stayed always in camp is a myth born much later. In the Old World, survival left no one idle. Their strength was also in teaching. Women were the first teachers of children, passing on language, skills, patience. Through lullabies, through stories, through steady hands, they shaped not just survival, but culture. A child's first sense of belonging, of right and wrong, of memory and imagination, came from women's voices, and their strength was in healing. Women learned herbs that closed wounds, soothed fevers, eased pain. They were keepers of remedies, of secrets of the earth. In many groups, they were healers and midwives, saving lives with nothing but knowledge, courage, and touch. Women's strength was not only of the body, but of spirit. They carried grief when children died, when partners did not return from the hunt, when hunger swept through camp. They sang to calm sorrow. They comforted the old. They reminded the group to endure. Emotional strength was as necessary as physical, and women bore it like stone bears' weight. And what of their creativity? Women painted too. They carved beads, braided hair, invented weaving, made beauty in the midst of struggle. Beauty was not luxury, it was identity. A necklace of shells, a painted pattern, a rhythm tapped on wood. These were declarations. We are more than hunger. We are human. Often overlooked, women were leaders too. In some groups, the elders who guided decisions were women. They held memory, gave counsel, chose when to move, when to stay. Strength of wisdom, strength of voice. These shaped the path of the people. Even in the bones of the dead, we see women's strength. Skeletons of women show scars of labor, breaks that healed, wear from endless work. They bore as much hardship as men, sometimes more, for their work never paused, not for storm, not for hunger, not even for childbirth. The strength of women was resilience. Men might fall in the hunt, but women carried the group through the long seasons. They bore double burdens of survival and of creation. They were the quiet backbone, the steady fire. But do not mistake quiet for small. Their strength echoed louder than mammoth roars, lasted longer than spear thrusts. It was a strength that built homes, fed generations, carried memory forward. And it was not only in prehistory. That strength flows still, every time a mother holds a crying child, Every time a grandmother teaches a story, every time a woman works unseen but essential labor, she carries that ancient power. Strength wears many faces. Some are bold, some are gentle. But without the strength of women, humanity would have ended in its first winters. And so, if the story of humanity is told as one of spears and hunts, let it also be told as one of cradles and songs, of hands grinding food, of arms lifting children, of voices soothing sorrow. This is the other half of the truth, the half that kept us alive. For strength is not always in muscle. Sometimes it is in endurance. Sometimes it is in patience. Sometimes it is in love. And from this strength grew something greater still, the strength of the whole group, united, lifting one another higher than any could go alone. Chapter 14. The Strength in Togetherness. A single spark can start a fire, but many sparks together can light the world. This was the secret humans carried, the strength of togetherness. Alone, a man might run fast. Alone, a woman might work hard. Alone, a child might be clever. But together, their strengths braided into something far greater. The world was dangerous. The cold bit hard. Beasts hunted. Hunger never rested. But when people stood side by side, they became more than flesh. They became a shield for one another. Togetherness meant protection. Imagine a night in the dark forest. The crack of branches, eyes glowing between the trees. A lion prowls. One person alone would tremble. But a dozen stand shoulder to shoulder, torches raised, voices loud. The lion hesitates. It knows this is no easy meal. It slinks away. Strength and togetherness has turned fear into safety. Togetherness meant food. One hunter may fail, but 3 hunters, each in their place, can trap the animal. One gatherer may miss the hidden roots, but a group spreads wide and fills their baskets. Sharing brings variety: meat, berries, nuts, fish. Together, the group eats richer than any single hand could provide. Togetherness meant endurance. On long journeys, the weak can rest while the strong carry more. Children ride on shoulders. Elders lean on arms. A group can travel farther than any lone wanderer. Togetherness meant wisdom. One person remembers a path. Another remembers a storm. Another remembers where the animals roam. Put these memories together, and the group holds a map larger than any one mind. Even mistakes turned into lessons when shared. A man may eat the wrong plant and suffer. Alone, his pain is wasted. Together, his group learns, this we must never eat. Pain becomes protection for all. Togetherness meant joy. A song sung alone is quiet, fragile. A song sung by many is thunder, echoing across valleys. A dance danced alone is small. A dance danced together shakes the ground. Laughter shared in the night lifts hearts higher than any food can. Togetherness was also healing. When one was hurt, others cleaned the wound. When one was sick, others brought water. When one grieved, others sat in silence, lending their presence. Pain divided among many was lighter than pain carried alone. Even fire itself was kept alive through togetherness. Someone always watched it. Someone always fed it. Someone always carried its embers when the group moved. If one person faltered, another stepped forward. Fire lived because community lived. But perhaps the greatest gift of togetherness was hope. Alone, despair could crush a person. Why keep walking? Why keep fighting? Why not give up? But in a group, there was always a reason. A child who needed food, a friend who needed comfort, a parent who needed care. Togetherness gave meaning. Meaning gave strength. Think of a night when snow falls heavy, when bellies are empty, when bones ache with cold. Alone, a person might lie down and never rise. But with others close, huddled tight, songs whispered, warmth shared, the will to live remains. Together they whisper, hold on. The sun will return. And so, they endure. Togetherness was not always easy. Disputes came, jealousies, anger, pride. But even these tested the group, shaping skills of peace, forgiveness, balance. People learned to talk, to listen, to compromise. For without peace, togetherness broke, and without togetherness, survival failed. So unity became more than strength. It became necessity. The groups that held together lived. The groups that split apart vanished. Nature itself carved this truth into humanity. Only together do we endure. This truth echoed into the future. Villages formed. Villages grew into towns. Towns into cities. Cities into nations. Each step was the same ancient pattern. Togetherness magnified strength. Walls could be built. Crops could be grown. Rivers could be bridged. Alone, impossible. Together, inevitable. But long before stone walls or cities, this truth was born in the simple circle around a fire, in hands passing food, in voices singing one song, in bodies leaning close against the cold. That circle of togetherness was humanity's first fortress. And even now, though walls are taller, though cities are vast, we live still inside that ancient circle. Families, friends, communities, all are shadows of the first fire rings where our ancestors discovered the greatest strength of all, the strength of togetherness. Chapter 15. The strength of tools. The human hand is clever, but the human hand, holding a tool, is unstoppable. This was the final strength that set our ancestors apart, the strength of tools. At first, tools were simple: a sharp rock to cut meat, a stick to dig roots, a bone to crush seeds. But even these small things changed everything. With a tool, the weak became strong, the small became mighty, the slow became swift. A stone knife could slice what teeth could not. A spear could strike farther than arms could reach. A basket could carry more than a back could bear. A fire-hardened stick could scare off a predator many times heavier than a man. Each tool was not just an object, it was borrowed strength, borrowed from the earth itself. Think of the first moment a person picked up a rock, sharper than nails, and cut into flesh. Suddenly, food could be prepared faster, bones opened for marrow, hides cleaned for clothing. That simple rock meant warmth, protection, energy. A tool was more than convenience. It was survival. Then came spears. No longer did hunters need to risk claws and tusks up close. They could throw, strike from a distance. Spears turned small groups into hunters of giants. Mammoths fell. Bison fell. Even the fiercest beasts learned to fear humans, not for their bodies, but for their tools. Later came fire itself, mastered not as gift of lightning, but as tool of life. Fire cooked food, making it safer, richer, easier to chew. Fire kept predators away, lit the night, warmed the freezing air. Fire shaped stone into sharper blades, clay into pots, metal into weapons. Fire turned weakness into strength. Every tool was memory carved into matter. When one person discovered a better way to chip flint, it was shared, remembered, passed on. Tools became stories, taught from hand to hand, generation to generation. Each tool carried not only use, but knowledge. The invisible force of memory made solid. Tools also freed time. With a basket, food could be gathered faster. With a knife, hides could be cleaned quicker. Time saved meant time to think, to dream, to imagine. Tools did more than make work easier. They made thought possible. And imagination answered back with more tools. Needles to sew, nets to catch fish, traps to snare animals, boats to cross rivers. Each invention was born from the human mind, but became real only in the human hand. The body alone was limited. But with tools, there was no limit. Even weapons shaped society. A group with spears hunted better than a group with sticks. A tribe with bows defended better than a tribe without. Tools became power. Power became survival. Survival became legacy. But tools were not only for work or war, they were also for beauty. Beads drilled with stone points, flutes carved from bone, colors brushed on cave walls. These too were tools, and they gave strength of another kind, the strength of meaning, of joy, of belonging. Through tools, humans also learned patience. To shape a stone blade took hours of steady tapping. To weave a basket took careful hands. To fire clay took waiting for flames to cool. Tools taught humans to slow down, to plan, to look forward. And with every tool came a step toward the future. Each stick, stone, and spark built a ladder out of the caves and into the world beyond. The strength of tools was not muscle, not memory, not imagination, not community alone. It was all of them combined. Memory taught how to shape. Imagination dreamed what to build. Community shared the knowledge, and muscle gave the force to make it real. Tools were the proof of every other strength working together, and that is why, in the end, humans rose higher than any beast. Not because they were the biggest, not because they were the strongest, but because they could turn the world itself into their ally. A lion has claws, an eagle has wings, but humans had tools, and with tools, they had the strength of everything. And so, from sparks struck in caves to cities lit with fire, the story of human strength is not one of muscle alone. It is the story of memory, of imagination, of community, of women and men, of togetherness, and of tools. The cavemen did not know it then, sitting around their small fires, holding their stone blades. But they were building a future that would carry us all. And if you close your eyes, you can still see them. The first hands shaping stones, the first sparks of fire, the first circles of community. You can still feel their strength inside you, because their strength is our strength. It has never left us.